Now, we're all aware of the never-ending crisis in the NHS, but one aspect that's frequently overlooked is the patient-doctor relationship, or more precisely, the complete lack of it. It used to be that you could call up your local surgery and make an appointment on the day to see your family doctor, someone who hopefully knew you well and that you could trust. Now it's barely possible to get an appointment at all. So, have we as a nation lost faith in our GPs? Linda?
Well, personally, I haven't. I love my GP. I go there. The last time I went there, which was for a routine checkup, I mean, I had to actually stop her talking because she was taking up too much time and she was giving me so much attention. I said, I think we can draw a halt now because I've got somewhere else to go. I've got to leave. So, very, very conscientious. That's just an anecdotal thing. But the kind of survey we're talking about, I think we do have to lift the lid on this and say that who really conducted the underlying data on which it was based, and it is a firm of personal injury lawyers. Now, once you know that, you know how to approach the kind of information that's being pushed forward, because you know, as well as I know, that there are lies, damned lies, and some statistics. And in fact, when you look at these statistics in the cold light of day, they're not really as bad as the Daily Mail is making it.
Well, no, that's right. This is a story in the Daily Mail suggesting that our GP services are in a parlous state. The doctor will see you now, but you probably don't want them to do. An interactive map lays bare all 260 of England's worst performing practices that are inadequate or require improvement.
But they are in the minority, and the quotes from the NHS and the Royal College of General Practitioners both say that actually most of these surgeries are performing very well. And the fact of the matter is, I think there is cause for concern, and the reason there's cause for concern is because we've got an ageing population, and it's very difficult to deal with huge numbers of people in their older years that are leaning on GPs. Now, we do have to do something about that, because it's an almost perfect storm, because GPs' numbers are going right down now because they're retiring early. You know, the personal tax allowance was frozen. It really wasn't worth financially. A lot of them carrying on. They retired. They left the profession. They've gone to Australia. They're doing this. They're doing that. They've had a hard time in the pandemic, and we haven't got enough GPs. So there is cause for concern, but I think this survey is a little bit misleading.
No, I appreciate your critical judgment on this, which is what makes you a great journalist. But this would, and I know it's only anecdotal, but this would contradict the hundreds of emails I get from viewers about how they can't get a GP appointment. I mean, obviously, during the pandemic, the NHS became very focused on COVID. I think that was a mistake, but obviously, you know, they were in a difficult situation at the time. But people have no confidence that they'll get an appointment or that they'll get seen. And that's the problem.
You see, the problem is that anecdotally, the last time I rang for an appointment, they said, can you come tomorrow? And I said, actually, I can't. I thought it would take a week. It didn't. It took 24 hours. But I probably am in a fairly good situation. But I can only take, as I find, I can only repeat. If we're talking about anecdotal evidence, I can only say that I don't have a problem.
Yeah. Anna?
I mean, I think you're very fortunate, because I think there's many people who actually aren't able to access their GP, or even if you try and call the GP, they don't always answer. Like another, I guess, anecdotal example for myself, when over the Christmas period, I had strep A, which was going around, and I developed a very bad muscle strain in my chest to the point where I was in debilitating pain. It was very bad, and I was really struggling, you know, even to a point struggling to breathe. I called my GP, and I got through to the reception, and without asking me anything about myself, my age, date of birth, anything like that, if I had any health conditions, they immediately said, well, I can give you this appointment, but you will be taken away for an emergency. And like, for me, I am in good health. I'm a young person. But imagine if an elderly person had rang like that, and then they're shut down immediately and told, well, actually, you're not a priority. You're not an emergency. You're taking away from someone else who might need that urgent care. And I think for the GPs, they're very overrun. There's a massive backlog. There's many people who are waiting for appointments. So a lot of them they're very stressed, and not everyone can be seen. So I think for many people, it really resonates, and they can't access their GPs.
Duncan, there's also that question of the patient-GP relationship, which I feel has diminished in recent years?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember as a kid growing up, Dr. McDonald Brown was our family doctor.
Did he keep a bottle of whiskey in the bottom drawer?
I was probably a bit too young to experience that whiskey, but he was that notion of a family doctor.
Yeah.
It has disappeared, and of course it's disappeared for reasons that are quite practical. You know, there are more people now, and the NHS is under a hell of a lot more pressure because a lot more is expected of it. But I think we need to be very careful to look at figures like this, where worse performing GP surgeries, because actually it's about why they're performing so badly.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine there's a doctor in the NHS that would actually have signed up for a situation where a patient that needs them is going to have to wait 2, 3, 4 weeks before they can actually come in and be treated or even just assessed. And what happens time and time again now is people are just told, get yourself to A&E.
Yeah.
And that ain't a solution either. No. If anyone has to go to A&E, it's a traumatic experience just to go there.
Yeah. And it leads to more problems, because the more overloaded A&E is, the more we've got problems in hospitals, because they're not, and it goes back to the ageing population again, they're not able to discharge patients often quickly enough because there are no spaces in care homes.
Yeah, for sure, sure. Hospitals are full of people that shouldn't really be in there by rights. I mean, Duncan, the issue is, and I always speak up for doctors and nurses, I think we all would, especially given what they've been through in the last 3 years. But I do wonder whether public anger is such that it threatens the relationship between not just doctor and patient, but really our view of the NHS overall, because, you know, the GP is the first point of contact for a patient. And if you feel you can't even get in on kind of, you know, ground zero, then you've got a problem. Access. I mean, we pay through the nose for the NHS, and yet we can't get the service in many cases.
We do, and when you see it in such a state, and these sorts of bits of research just lay that bare, you start to think maybe there is a very strong argument for charging people that don't turn up to the appointments that they finally get. Those sorts of things, you know. But again, free at entry, it's a political hot potato. So the common sense options, I would say, are not even considered in this particular wonderful NHS that no one can criticise.
Well, and I think as well the NHS is being taken over by many bureaucratic forces. There are people that care more about building the rainbow roads than actually caring about the patients who are in need of urgent care. And I think the whole system is broken and needs to be fixed. OK, well, we put out a Twitter poll before the programme. Have the public lost trust in their GP services? Are they dismayed? Have they lost faith? I think that was the key word. So I'll let you guess. What percentage do you think, Linda, are dissatisfied with their GP service from a non-scientific GBNews poll?
And not anything to do with my own personal view.
No.
I think probably 70%.
You're 70%, Duncan? It's like play your cards right. Higher or lower?
Yeah, OK, I'm going to go lower than 70%.
You go lower than 70?
Yeah,
I'm going to say 75.
OK, well, the money and the points and the speedboat goes to Anna McGovern.
Oh, there you go.
Because here are the results.
82%
82% of GBNews viewers have said that they have, let's lose that strap, have Brits lost faith in their GPs, their GP services? And that's really bad news for the NHS, and it must be addressed as a matter of urgency. I'm sure plenty of you, like Linda, have a good service, and we should acknowledge the great work that many GPs do. It's a tough gig, but too many are falling short.